Transformed against their will. Transformed against their will. A lot of people excuse themselves by saying they did something awful as a means to avenge some slight or other, but usually when you look at it, the slight is very small. I would be lying if I said Buffy St. Clair had ever done anything specifically to slight me, but her very existence bugged me. Maybe it was plain unalloyed jealousy, or maybe I am just a self-defining evil genius. She was beautiful, the sort of woman everyone wants to be or have, the sort of woman even someone who doesn't really like women who cite as an example of perfection: glossy, naturally honey blonde hair, gleaming teeth, skin that was glowing with health, not a blemish on her. Her eyes were enhanced by the long lashes and the carefully, artfully plucked eyebrows. Her figure was a perfect hourglass, if you like measurement. I would say she was about 39. 25 to 36, almost unreal proportions. The 39 was probably about 32G if you want a bra sizes for weight. Who knows? Her perfectly toned musculature, not overly developed, still enough subcutaneous fact to make her womanly and delicious, meant that her weight with those proportions was a matter of guesswork. She was about 5 feet 10 inches, and I, while similarly proportioned if truth be known, was several inches shorter. Your guess at her weight back then is as good as mine. If the girl had a fault, it was this: she wasn't content with her beauty. She was always looking for ways to enhance it still further. I professed to be her friend, had known here since we were both preteen pageant contestants, yet she always seemed to be queen to my second runner-up. The girls who came first runner-up were possibly better looking and sweeter natured than me, but most of them had ended up fatter and contentedly settled as the wives of supermarket managers, or more usually checkout girls and waitresses. At 27, the two of us were perhaps past our prime as beauty queens, but Buffy wasn't going to let go of her vanity quite that easily. She was still as gorgeous and fresh as she had been at 16 and 18. She would almost certainly still be looking spectacular at 50 if she hadn't been quite as trusting in her friends. We were sharing an apartment in France. The two of us had taken up careers as houses, perhaps one of the most cliched careers for a pretty young lady. It was, after all, just a glorified waitressing job, but without college educations and with only our good looks and personable natures to sustain us both. It was the best of all worlds. Paris base was the ultimate in glamour for two Midwest girls like us. Buffy seemed to glory in her life. I was constantly bored. Maybe in retrospect that boredom played no small part in subsequent events. Buffy was usually the picture of health, but that April she had started to suffer from allergies and had sent me out to get some sort of antihistamines that would alleviate her symptoms. My French wasn't great, but at the pharmacy I grabbed a likely-looking box. It was within Buffy's budget and looked like it would do the job. Thanks, Pamela. Buffy had smiled winningly as I tossed her the box. It came with a huge leaflet which Buffy immediately discarded without reading. Her French was not great, so she wouldn't have understood much of it anyway. I kept it and stashed it in a drawer just in case. I had no trouble with languages. I am gifted in tongues. Buffy took 2 of the pills, and neither of us though know more about it a few weeks later on a flight to New York. Buffy seemed concerned. She called me into the galley just after the safety announcements, whispering, "Pamela, does my chin look different to you?" she asked, concerned. I squinted at her. Now she came to mention it did seem a little puffier than usual. I also noticed a few tiny black hairs. This didn't surprise me. I have very dark hair and have had a slight problem with stray hairs ever since I can remember. It had never occurred to me that Buffy was anything but a natural blonde, but maybe this proved otherwise. I couldn't help but glowed a little at the discovery. No, I can't see anything different, I lied. Anything that stopped the girl being quite so perfect was fine by me. I think I've put on weight, she said. Really? As I said, I had no idea what weight she was anyway. Probably just water retention. Haven't you had that before? She nodded. And no, it figured so perfect. Even the usual maladies of mortal women were alien to her. I assured her there was nothing to worry about. It seemed to assure her, and the rest of the flight went by without incident. A few days later I was up getting breakfast. Buffy hadn't yet woken, which was unusual as it was past 10 a.m. She wasn't a clubber, and despite always getting her 8 hours of sleep, was usually up before 8 a.m. ready for her morning gym visit and a healthy, well-balanced breakfast. She emerged from her room still not fully dressed, hair slightly mused, looking a little blur-eyed. Most people would still look at her and see perfection, but for Buffy she looked rough. She said nothing but opened a cupboard and took out some of her antihistamines, swallowing them down with a very large glass of milk. Allergy season must be really harsh this year, she complained. These pills are barely making a dent in how I feel. I made noises of sympathy but didn't have time for much else. I had a flight to catch. Buffy had 2 weeks vacation which she had chosen to spend in Paris alone. Off I went, saying goodbye to my roommate and wishing her a great vacation. Yeah, bon voyage yourself, she said wearily. I was going to be traveling almost non-stop for the next 3 weeks, and I was looking forward to seeing a bit of the world. 3 weeks later I was feeling exhausted but content. I had been offered a promotion that meant I would be based at the airport, which suited me as it was more money, and I had started to grow weary of air travel. I arrived home ready to share my news with my roommate. "Hey, guess what?" I called as I came in. The figure on the coach turned around. "Buffy looked really rough. Oh no, are you ill?" I said. It was a bit of a shock seeing her. Her hair was dull, her skin had started to break out. She had clearly put on weight. "No, not ill, just a bit tired." Buffy smiled, getting up. She seemed not to realize what a mess she looked. "Have you even left the house?" I asked. "Yes, of course," she said brightly. "At least yes, I went somewhere a few days ago." I think she checked her phone. "Oh goodness, is that the date?" "You're right, I haven't been out in a while. Didn't notice you left the fridge so well stocked. I haven't really needed to go out to eat and time just drifted." I quickly checked the fridge, freezer and cupboards. She had seemingly eaten everything in the house, and she was right, there had been a lot of food. While looking in the cupboard I came across the leaflet from the antihistamines. I glanced at it. Sure enough, side effects included lethargy, weight gain, apathy, confusion, excessive hair growth, hair loss, muscle distribution, and hormonal disturbances. It said such side effects were rare, but it looked as though Buffy was suffering from several of them. I decided on the spur of the moment not to tell her. I suppose it was kind of all my fault from there on, and I bought more groceries to replace those Buffy had got through. If anything, I overstocked. I also bought more of those antihistamines. Research on the internet seemed to suggest many people felt their whole metabolism had been altered by the pills. It was odd they were still on sale, but it seemed that personal opinion didn't make a difference to drug licenses, so remain on sale they did. While I was at it, I decided to add a few more medications, all herbal, one that had a similar effect to steroids, one that had a proven sedative effect. I was curious to see what would happen if Buffy took them all. She was back to work that Monday, well put together but ever so slightly dozy. The changes in her appearance were perhaps minor, but to anyone who knew here, she wasn't looking great. Her waist had expanded so she had a slightly square appearance, and her bosom wasn't quite as prodigious as it had been. Her thicker calves still looked athletic, but possibly more shot putter athletic than sprinter. Her hair was still thick, but I had life at her brush, and it was obvious she had lost quite a lot of hair in the last few weeks. It also looked a little on the lifeless side, and dare I say it, there was a tiny hint of dandruff. The lighting in the apartment bathroom wasn't great. We had those energy-efficient light bulbs and no windows, so Buffy probably hadn't really noticed the tiny hairs growing on her slightly spotty and every so puffy chin as she worked flirting with the businessmen in first class. She was still a clearly beautiful woman, though her beauty was a little way short of perfection now. If I was being really unkind, I would say she had started to resemble a drag queen, a very, very good drag queen, granted, and I hadn't even started experimenting on her yet. I already started to feel a little guilty, but I really wanted to see where this would lead. A week or two later, her appearance had started to really change. She was called into the personnel office to have a chat, and an hour later she emerged teary-eyed. "They fired me," she howled. I hugged her like the good friend I was pretending to be. "What am I going to do? I don't want to go back home in disgrace." "Hey, you can stay in Paris," I assured her. "Two can live as cheaply as one, and I am sure you can find a job here anyway." I doubted it. Her French was rudimentary at best, and her work ethic was already shot from the side effects of the antihistamines, so I got to work. I didn't even have to do much, just provide the pills and the food. I had even started stocking up on alcohol, and beer in particular I rarely drank, and until recently neither had Buffy. There was really nothing in this for me, except, if I am honest, a slight thrill, maybe a bit sexual, at seeing her change. At first it was fairly slow. Her weight continued to go up, or it looked as if it did to me. She rarely left the house if changed out of her pajamas and robe, but the hourglass figure very soon changed to boxy. Her hair was a lot thinner, so much so that even she, in her apathetic state, noticed. After a few weeks I offered to trim it for her. "It's probably just the time of the year," I assured her. "It looks fine, but I could get rid of some of those split ends if you want." She agreed, so there I was, scissors in hand and a clippers on standby should the need arise. "Hey, you know what's cute and really in right now?" I said casually while taking off just an inch short hair. "You could really pull it off with your bone structure." Her bone-own structure was still amazing, but it was a little hidden by the increasingly square and puffy jawline. "Change is good," Buffy said dreamily. "One of the side effects of the herbal sedative was suggestibility. Apparently do it." My hair cutting skills were negligible, but I did my best to tidy up the mess her hair had become, and if I do say so myself, I did a pretty good job. If the recipient of the cut had been a middle-aged bald businessman, "Oh my goodness, you look so adorable," I lied. Buffy believed me and didn't even ask for a mirror. She just asked for a beer and a bag of chips and laid out on the couch for a nap in front of the TV. I looked at the sleeping girl. She was Still sort of good-looking but no beauty queen now, she seemed to be developing a beer belly, her shoulders seemed broader. And her waist thicker, her boobs were perhaps a C-cup, hard to tell, but her back had broadened, so she was possibly. "No, I'm real," Alan said quickly, trying to stay in character despite his embarrassment. After more teasing questions, Alan struggled to respond, growing more flustered by the second. That hesitation was all Jane needed. You're definitely the criminal," she announced triumphantly. "Back to prison." Before he knew it, Alan was tied up again, this time still dressed in the pink outfit, ribbons in his hair. Jane laughed and declared a new punishment, and soon both girls were laughing as they continued their playful antics, while Alan protested and tried to squirm free. Just then there was a knock on the door. "All right, girls, wrap up your game," came a voice from downstairs. "Alan will be leaving soon." The girls paused immediately. Alan shifted awkwardly, trying to straighten himself out as best he could. Jane hurried off to fetch his clothes while Emma quickly untied him and began helping him out of the outfit. Moments later, his clothes were tossed onto the bed. As Alan reached for them, he noticed something crawling on his underpants. A spider from the garden. Startled, he yelped and flung them away again, sending them back out the window. The girls burst into laughter and refused to retrieve them, leaving Alan with little choice but to get dressed without them. Once he had changed back into his jeans and t-shirt, he headed downstairs, but then realized he still had the ribbons in his hair. Quickly, he pulled them out and left them behind before continuing. At the bottom of the stairs, his mother was already waiting, coat on and ready to leave. "Come on, Alan," she said, heading toward the door. "Wait a second, Mum," he started, glancing toward the back of the house, but she stopped him. "No time now. You can come back another day." With no chance to explain, Alan said his goodbyes and followed her out. As they drove home, his mother gave him a curious look. "Were you playing dress-up?" she asked. Alan flushed, memories of the day rushing back. The outfit, the ribbons, everything. "Yeah," he admitted quietly. "I thought so," she said with a small smile. "You might want to wash your face when we get home. You seem to still have some lipstick on." Alan sank back into his seat, wishing the ground would swallow him as the car continued down the road.